أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. مومنین کرام، آج سیریز آف سپیچز کی آخری سپیچ، 5ویں سپیچ مولانا سید اسد جعفری صاحب کی. آج شب عید زہرا کے حوالے سے جشن میلاد میں تمام مومنین کو آج کی شب کی خوشیاں مبارک ہو. اس جشن کی شروعات ماسٹر عفیف تلاوت کلام پاک سے کریں گے، تو میں دعوت دوں گا ماسٹر عفیف کو گائیں اور محفل کا آغاز تلاوت کلام پاک سے کریں. اور محمد وآل محمد بلندتر صلوات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء ذات البروج والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود. قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود. وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
عفیف کی عزت و سلامتی و توفیقات میں اضافے کے لیے بلندتر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. محفل کا آغاز تلاوت کلام پاک سے ہو چکا ہے. اب محفل میں ہمارے کشیدہ منقبت خان سب سے پہلے ہمارے برادر عرفان زیدی بھائی آئیں گے، آپ کے سامنے کشیدہ منقبت پیش کریں گے. اس کے بعد ہمارے مجاز جعفری بھائی کشیدہ منقبت پیش کریں گے. اس کے بعد قبلہ مولانا سید اسد جعفری صاحب کی خطاب ہوگا. تو میں ملتمس ہوں پہلے اپنے عرفان بھائی سے وائیں اور منقبت پیش کریں. بار دیگر بلندتر صلوات.
بار دیگر بلند ترین صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد چل فرجہم. تحت اللفظ میں یہ منقبت ہے مشہور، بہت ہی مشہور حفیظ جالندھری صاحب کی. امام حسین کو عقیدہ کا نذرانہ پیش کیا تھا. آج سے 100 سال سے بھی زیادہ عرصہ ہو چکا ہے، لیکن اب بھی اس کو اسی طرح سے پڑھا جاتا ہے، سنا جاتا ہے. مشہور نوحہ خوان اور مرثیہ خوان نے اس کو مختلف انداز میں پڑھا بھی ہے. میں تحت اللفظ میں پڑھتا ہوں. یہ بالیقین حسین ہے، نبی کا نور عین ہے. لباس ہے پھٹا ہوا غبار میں اٹا ہوا، لباس ہے پھٹا ہوا غبار میں اٹا ہوا، تمام جسم نازنی چھدا ہوا کٹا ہوا، یہ کون ذی وقار ہے بلا کا شہ سوار ہے، یہ کون ذی وقار ہے بلا کا شہ سوار ہے، کہ ہے ہزاروں قاتلوں کے سامنے ڈٹا ہوا، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے، کہ جس کی ایک ضرب سے کمال فن حرب سے، کہ جس کی ایک ضرب سے کمال فن حرب سے کئی شکی گرے ہوئے تڑپ رہے ہیں کرب سے، غضب ہے تیغ دو سر کہ ہر ایک وار پر اٹھی صدائے علمان زبان شرق و غرب سے، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے، یہ کون حق پرست ہے، توجہ کیجئے گا اسٹوڈنٹ، یہ کون حق پرست ہے میں رضا سے مست ہے، یہ کون حق پرست ہے میں رضا سے مست ہے، کہ جس کے سامنے کوئی پست ہے نہ، کہ جس کے سامنے کوئی بلند ہے نہ پست ہے، ادھر ہزار گھات ہیں، ادھر ہزار گھات ہیں مگر عجیب بات ہے، کہ ایک سے ہزارہا کا حوصلہ شکست ہے، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے، ابا بھی تار تار ہے تو جسم بھی فگار ہے، ابا بھی تار تار ہے تو جسم بھی فگار ہے، زمیں بھی ہے تپی ہوئی فلک بھی شعلہ بار ہے، مگر یہ مرد تیغ زن، مگر یہ مرد تیغ زن، یہ صف شکن فلک فگان، کمال صبر و تندہی سے محو کارزار ہے، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے، دلاوری میں فرد ہے بڑا ہی شیر مرد ہے، دلاوری میں فرد ہے بڑا ہی شیر مرد ہے، کہ جس کے دبدبے سے دشمنوں کا رنگ زرد ہے، دلاوری میں فرد ہے بڑا ہی شیر مرد ہے، کہ جس کے دبدبے سے دشمنوں کا رنگ زرد ہے، حبیب مصطفیٰ ہے یہ مجاہد خدا ہے یہ، حبیب مصطفیٰ ہے یہ مجاہد خدا ہے یہ، جبھی تو اس کے سامنے یہ فوج گرد گرد ہے، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے، ادھر سپاہ شام ہے، ادھر سپاہ شام ہے ہزار انتظام ہے، ادھر سپاہ شام ہے ہزار انتظام ہے، ادھر ہے دشمنان دین ادھر فقط امام ہے، ادھر ہے دشمنان دین ادھر فقط امام ہے، مگر عجیب شان ہے غضب کی آن بان ہے، کہ جس طرف اٹھی ہے تیغ بس خدا کا نام ہے، یہ بالیقین حسین ہے نبی کا نور عین ہے۔ اب جب مولا حسین کی منقبت بیان کی اس کے ساتھ مولا غازی عباس کے لیے دو رباعیاں چھوٹی سی میں پیش کرتا ہوں۔ صلوات دعا علی محمد، کیا جانے کن کن قوموں نے ڈیرے ڈالے دریا پر، آئے آ کر لوٹ گئے سب گورے کالے دریا پر، اب بھی ملیں گے ٹوٹے ہوئے کچھ خنجر بھالے دریا پر، قبضہ کرنے آئے تھے سب گورے کالے دریا پر، سب کا قبضہ ختم ہوا عباس کا قبضہ باقی ہے، 14 صدیاں بیت گئیں شبیر کا چرچا باقی ہے، پیاسوں کے انکار کا پتھر کربل میں تھا سب سے بڑا، پیاسوں کے انکار کا خنجر گردن پر کچھ ایسا چلا، لاکھوں فتنے اٹھے لیکن پھر سر بیعت اٹھ نہ سکا، جب بھی کسی کے دل میں تمنا بیعت کی اٹھتی ہے ذرا، تو کہتا ہے عباس کا پرچم فکر یزیدی ہوش میں آ، جس نے تجھے مارا تھا تماچا دیکھ وہ پنجہ باقی ہے، 14 صدیاں بیت گئیں شبیر کا چرچا باقی ہے۔ بارک صلوات
آج کی شب نبی کی شب ہے، آپ سب کو مبارک ہو عید زہرا کی، اور ایک سورہ فاتح کی التماس ہے تمام مرحومین کے لیے، اور آج جن کے قبر پہلی رات ہے ان کے لیے۔ صلوات۔ کرب و بلا نصیب سے جانا، نصیب ہو کرب و بلا نصیب سے جانا، نصیب ہو پھر لوٹ کر وہاں سے نہ آنا، نصیب ہو ایسا در حسین پہ سجدہ ہو آخری، ایسا در حسین پہ سجدہ ہو آخری، پھر مجھ کو اپنا سر نہ اٹھانا، نصیب ہو جیسا ملا نصیب سے ام البنین کو، جیسا ملا نصیب سے ام البنین کو، اب کیا کسی کو ایسا گھرانہ نصیب ہو۔ ہر منقبت خواہ کی ایک خواہش ہوتی ہے، جو میرا خیال سے میر حسن میر نے شاید پڑھی تھی، تو
یہ جو شعر ہے یہ ہر منقبت خواہاں کی مخاطب دل کی آواز ہے. جی چاہتا ہے سامنے بیٹھے ہو پنجتن، دل چاہتا ہے سامنے بیٹھے ہو پنجتن، ان کی ثنا انہی کو سنانا نصیب ہو، ان کی ثنا انہی کو سنانا نصیب ہو. محشر یہ آرزو ہے کہ بے غسل و بے کفن، محشر یہ آرزو ہے کہ بے غسل و بے کفن، کرب و بلا کی تہ میں سمانا نصیب ہو، پھر لوٹ کر وہاں سے نہ آنا نصیب ہو. بر محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
جزاکم اللہ خیر. مجاز بھائی کی صحت و سلامتی کے لیے، ارحان بھائی کی صحت و سلامتی کے لیے، تمام حاضرین محفل کی صحت و سلامتی کے لیے بلندتر صلوات. صلی علی محمد. مومنین کرام، جہاں بھی کوئی مومن مومنہ بیمار ہے، بالخصوص سسٹر نسرین اعزاز، ڈاکٹر اخلاق زیدی صاحب، مولانا نجم الحسن صاحب، اور اس کے علاوہ جو جہاں بھی بیمار ہے انڈیا میں، پاکستان میں، عراق میں، کینیڈا میں، اور جو کووڈ-19 کی اس بیماری میں مبتلا، اللہ تعالیٰ سے دعا ہے کہ بیماری کربلا کے صدقے میں ان کو جلد از جلد شفا یابی عطا کریں. تمام مومنین کی صحت و سلامتی کے لیے بلندتر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی. التماس سورہ فاتحہ ہے مرحوم سید اطہر نواب رضوی ابن سید نواب حسین رضوی، اور اپنے مرحومین کو شامل کرتے ہوئے، تمام شہداء کو شامل کرتے ہوئے ایک سورہ مبارکۃ الفاتحہ تلاوت فرمائیں. اور محمد و آل محمد بلندتر صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد. مومنین کرام، جیسے کہ آپ حضرات کو معلوم ہے کہ آج یہ 5 سیریز لیکچرز کی آخری سپیچ ہوگی، اور کل یہاں پر منڈے کو جشن عید زہرا کے حوالے سے جشن کا انعقاد کیا گیا ہے. وہ ٹھیک 7 بجے شام پروگرام سٹارٹ ہوگا صلاۃ المغربین سے. 7:30 بجے قصیدہ و منقبت، اس کے بعد قبلہ مولانا سید حاجی حسن صاحب کل کے جشن میلاد میں خطاب فرمائیں گے. مومنین اور مومنات سے گزارش ہے کہ جو اس محفل میں، جشن محفل میں عید زہرا میں کل شمولیت کرنا چاہتے ہیں حسینیہ میں، وہ پلیز ایگزیکٹو عباس مومن بھائی سے کسی سے بھی رابطہ کر کے رجسٹریشن کر لیں. ہیک آن لائن سٹریمنگ بھی ویسے ہی چلتی رہے گی جیسے گزشتہ پروگرام اس کی آپ تک لائیو سٹریمنگ پہنچائی جا رہی ہے. اور آج کے حوالے سے قبلہ مولانا اسد جعفری صاحب کی یہ شب عید زہرا کے حوالے سے سپیچ ہوگی. ہم حسینی ایسوسیشن آف کیلگری کی جانب سے ذاتی طور پہ میں مولانا سید اسد جعفری صاحب کا بے حد مشکور و ممنون ہوں. انہوں نے اپنے قیمتی وقت میں سے یہ ٹائم نکال کے ہمارے ساتھ یہ 5 شب گزارے ہیں. اللہ تعالیٰ سے دعا ہے کہ ان کی ان تقاریر جو انہوں نے علمی گفتگو کی ہمارے ساتھ، ہمیں توفیق دے اس پہ عمل پیرا ہونے کے لیے. اور میں بہت ہی شکر گزار ہوں تمام مومنین کا جو اس پروگرام میں عملاً یہاں پر موجود رہے اور انہوں نے اس بارگاہ کو آباد رکھا. اللہ تعالیٰ سے دعا ہے کہ جو آن لائن اسٹریمنگ کو دیکھ رہے تھے، جہاں بھی دیکھ رہے ہیں، ان کو بھی صحت و سلامتی عطا کریں. قبلہ کو دعوت دینے سے پہلے چند اشعار. ملے نہ تم کو کوئی غم غم حسین کے بعد، मिले न तुमको कोई गम गमे हुसैन के बाद, ईद जहरा भी मनाओ गमे हुसैन के बाद। ले आए काट कर मुख्तार सर लईनों के, ले आए काट के मुख्तार सर लईनों के, है आज रुख पे तबस्सुम गमे हुसैन के बाद। अब मैं मुल्तमस हूँ मौलाना क़िबला सैयद असद जाफरी साहब से, वो महफिल मिलाद से खिताब करें। बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद बुलंद पर सलवात मोहम्मद।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم، وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان، خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان، ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the arrival of the Shab of Eid al-Zahra, and let me send my mabruk and my congratulations to all of you on this very beautiful night. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you on this night, inshallah. On a personal note, let me express my gratitude and my appreciation to the Husseiniya Association there in Calgary for allowing me to address the community for the past 5 nights. As I said on the first night, I missed all of you dearly this time, that I was not there in person as I was last year, to once again sit with all of you and learn from all of you. But inshallah, once this pandemic is over, we will once again be able to meet. May Allah accept the efforts of those who are bringing this online streaming together. May Allah accept all of you who are leaving your homes during this pandemic, and may Allah protect you from any virus of the body or of the soul, inshallah. For the tawfiq of the team of Riyazba and his team and all of you and your families, please recite one love salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Our discussion has been revolving around raising God-centric children, and it has reached its final night in our discussion. We have talked about many, many things in the past 4 nights, starting from the idea of the responsibility of guidance and the reality of tarbiyat. What does it mean to be someone's murabbi, and to understand that, you know, there are elements within this reality of being somebody's murabbi that we all have to understand. We all aspire to have children. It seems to be a logical step as a young couple. We've been married for a couple of years now, let's have children. And, you know, it's not that simple. Let's stop and think, are we ready for a child? Do we have the proper identity formed between the two of us? Are we on the same page spiritually before we even venture into the idea of a child? Sometimes I find that couples, you know, they use the child to kind of, you know, fix their errors, bridge their gaps, strengthen their marriages. And it just doesn't work like that sometimes. Right? So we also need to understand the reality of bringing somebody into this world, raising them. I'm not deterring any of my young couples from having kids at all, but it does require you to be on some sort of a page together to raise one child or one human being together as the mother and the father, if both of you are there. We talked about the importance of hadaf shanasi. The very first point I made on the very first lecture 5 nights ago, I talked about the fact that if it's one thing you can start right away with your child, it's slowly, subconsciously, indirectly now, remind them that everything they do has a purpose and everything that exists in this universe has a purpose. So if you and I do the smallest things, putting on our clothes, washing our face, brushing our teeth, all of it has a purpose, then how can it be that God the Almighty does not have a purpose for you and I? If that's the case, if we've accepted the fact that this is our purpose, then let's move towards fulfilling that purpose. Those who walk around aimlessly, those who walk around without purpose, or those who simply believe this world to be nothing but a play and sport and the end all and be all, you can see their life in front of us, right? Level A celebrities, athletes that have made millions of dollars, all of them now assuming that this is the end all and be all, and end up exactly unfortunately either suicidal or overdose in drugs or caught up in some scandal. And I'm not saying that those Muslims who understand God don't get caught up in these things, but it does help when a person is able to identify the purpose and maintain that purpose throughout their life. Then we talked about everything from the importance of tribalism. We talked about a couple of nights ago the importance of creating an environment where your child feels like they are distinct. And last night, in the idea in our Shahadat Majlis of our 11th Imam, we talked about imprisonment and giving your child all the tools to flourish. That even when there are those moments now where it seems like there's darkness around them, heavy concrete slabs on top of them, like that blade of grass last night, they have to be continuously looking for paths to grow. And that brings us to tonight. And tonight I want to briefly go through the 777 hadith and then end off, if I have time, because I don't have Masai tonight, so I do have a little bit extra time, and end off talking a little bit about the connection between being a parent and being a servant of God. That, inshallah, if I have time at the end, I will. I'll give you. Inshallah, by 8:45 your time, inshallah, I'll be done. This famous hadith by Imam Jaffri Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, which has been discussed a lot. There's been books written, there's been conferences, there's been seminars. I'm sure that the ulama that have come up in and out of HAC have talked about this. But I want to present to you a little bit of what I believe, just very briefly, a synopsis tonight. I still think that there is a lot of confusion. I still get phone calls from parents looking to raise pious kids and not establishing the right form of tarbiyat in the first couple of years of their life, because they've misunderstood what the 777 mean. Now, the hadith is very simple. Imam Sadiq now has broken up upbringing into 3 different stages: the first 7 years, the second set of 7 years, and the third set of 7 years. Right? So 0 to 7, 8 to 15, 16 and up, or 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 15 and up, whatever, however you want to do the calculation. And he says that the first 7 years, your child is the king and you are his servant. The second set of 7, from 7 to 14, they are the slave, you are the king. And the last 7, they are a wazir for you, an advisor for you. All this requires explanation. And if I had the entire ashra, this hadith requires 10 nights to be understood. The psychology of a child when they're younger, the capacity of a child when they are younger, all these things are important. Now, what ends up happening is the misconception is that for the first 7 years, because he is the Shahzada inside the house, right? He's the prince and he's the king, or this daughter of yours is the king. And I've been told by Imam Sal to not push them at all. So they get away with everything. No tarbiyat, no raising your voice, no authority, no teaching them basic akhlaq until they turn 7. Now, all of a sudden now, at 7, you think that, okay, I can start now giving them discipline. I can start now turning the switch on, and there not to be a confusion on their end. Think about a child now. First 7 years, they're coasting. I can get away with this. And all of a sudden, when they turn 8, everything changes. So it's not the case that Imam Sadiq is not saying to not raise your kids when they are 7. Remember, I keep saying this, even if you have children who are older, right? If your parents, meaning the kids' grandparents, they have a role to play. Older siblings for younger siblings have a role to play in all this, okay? The first 7 years is not the idea that the child can do whatever they want and there not be any discipline, any sort of akhlaq building or any sort of tarbiyat. When Imam Sadiq says that they are the king, that means that they are not to be pushed very hard beyond their capacity, okay? If you asked them, for example, you asked them to do a task, clean your room, and after fixing one pillow, they're tired, they loaf around, those aren't the years for you to start yelling and screaming, I told you clean your room, make sure you clean your room. No, the kid is 5, the kid is 6. They don't have that capacity, right? If you ask them, can you make sure that you go and fix the shoe area, and they fix one pair of shoes and then they get distracted, right? That's all you can expect from them, okay? The ideal Islamic schooling system is that you don't even teach a child anything until they're 7 years old. The first 7 is mostly play. The first 7 is mostly curiosity, creativity, right? Let them learn things with their senses. Let them watch plants grow. Let them, for example, I don't know, understand how a wheel spins on their bike, right? How a lawnmower cuts grass in their front lawn. That's the schooling that should be there until about grade 2 or grade 3, and then you give them formal education. But of course, it's not like that. There are many parents who have to, and the system in Canada, of course, is at the age of 4 or 5 now you have to now begin to start them in school. The reason for that is that they are at that stage now where they're still trying to figure things out in terms of their capacity, okay? These are not the years to overwhelm your child. They're not the years to teach them big, huge concepts. Definitely not the years now to teach them, very emotionally draining things. And, I say this and I don't mean to upset anybody. I don't. I find it sometimes difficult when parents now teach the very, very detailed masa'ib of what happened on the day of Ashura to their 6-year-old child, their 7-year-old child. They talk about Ali Asghar's arrow. They talk about the trampling of the body. They talk about the burnt kurta of Bibi Sakina and the ripping of the ears out to Bibi Sakina. For a 6-year-old, that's very difficult to digest. They don't have the emotional capacity to understand that all that pain can happen to a 4-year-old, a 6-month-old, a 10-year-old. Right? Those aren't the years now for them to understand. Now, mind you, if you're doing that, as a parent, it's up to you. It's your child. I'm saying that the first 7 years is a years of creativity. Let them play. Let them be bored, right? Let them sketch. Let them draw. Let them color. Okay. Let them kind of build things, right? Let them, give them, Lego blocks and see how their blocks are, for example, right? For example, I'm saying, right? So those are the years now where you're kind of like, you're allowing them to have their creative juices flow, right? What they end up doing in boredom. But yes, if they're out of line, for example, then yes, you could sit there and, with obviously a very soft tone and soft tongue now, discipline them and say, look, that's not good behavior. You're better than that. You're a good boy. You're a good girl. Let's be better than that. That's not what we do. That's not very nice of you. It's okay to say that. Can you imagine for the first 7 years, the child now can get away with anything they want to get away with. And at the age of 8 now, they're being disciplined and being punished for everything they've been doing for the past 7 years. You're like, wait a second now, for the first 7 years, you said nothing. Now, all of a sudden, now I'm being punished? Why? And so they're bound to be rebellious. Had we slowly but surely now told them that, look, this is not acceptable behavior or actions or decisions to be made at a softer tone, then at the age of 8, 9, 10, they understand this is not acceptable behavior. Okay. Also, when it comes to spirituality and worship, we are not to push them, right? You're not to sit there and force them, let's say, to pray salat with you. I like I said yesterday, I've seen fathers who grab their 6-year-old and just hold them by the shoulders and say, "Hilnama, don't move." That's not the way we do it, right? The child will have a nasty taste in their mouth for salat, right? The first 7 years is simply the idea of the gradual process of learning something. Even the deen is given to them gradually. Okay, let them see that the whole family is praying namaz. Let me also be part of the namaz. So they'll come themselves and they'll set up their jan namaz and they'll be facing the wrong way of qibla and they'll do their namaz in 10 seconds. Say, Baba, I prayed namaz. Oh, good for you, beta. And give them some tashriq and some encouragement, right? But you don't need to sit there and force them, wudu karo. No, of course not. Not at that stage. Let them be. They're kids. Let them be kids. Nowadays, I find it's just sad to me that my 5-year-old knows what pandemic means. And he keeps saying, "Oh, Baba, when the coronavirus is over, no 5-year-old should know what a coronavirus is, unfortunately, right? It breaks my heart. This is your life to like live and play and understand your capacity. But yes, there is tarbiyat. Yes, there are adab and etiquettes of the dinner table, for example, of saying salam, for example, of wearing proper clothes, for example, right? Like a lot of us now, after Maghrib hit tonight, we thought, okay, it's Eid now, so we can change our clothes, we can change our background. No longer is there black now, right? All these things are there. The first 7 years are important, but the most crucial 7 years of the 3, if you ask me, are the second set, from 7 to 14. That's when the child is ready to take on a lot, okay? That's when you give them everything from formal education to spiritual training, right? To salat, right? To discipline, to authority, to respect, to a lot of things, okay? So if that means, of course, formal education, now challenge them, right? Focus on them, make them have those work ethic now skills built inside of them. Okay, make sure that they're thorough in their task. If you ask them to clean their room and they haven't, then show that you're a little bit upset about that fact. Clean your room, please. Right? Remind them that now you're 7, now you're 8. Right? Now, why are these 7 there? That I don't know. I haven't read that anywhere. I don't know what it is about the move from 7 to 8, but it's there. It's there in hadith, and there is wisdom behind that. This is the year now where you build their work ethic. This is the year now where you ask him to help you clean the house, and now where you ask him to help them clean the room, and you can now bathe for yourself now and make sure you're brushing your teeth a few times a day. And yes, by the way, now you have to come and sit beside us in salat. Hadith says that when your child reaches 7, bring them to the janamas and musalla. Now wait for them. Yes, it's not wajib on them. But now you're there, your spouse is there, your other older kids are there, and now your newly 7 or 8-year-old is there beside you as well. And remind them that you're 7 now, you belong in the family Jamaat. Your younger brother is not, he's a baby, he's 7 yet. And hopefully they'll say, oh, wow, I'm 7, I'm a big girl and I'm a big boy now. I get to pray with the family and the Jamaat. And they'll embrace that if it's presented properly. Why is the question? Why do we have to do that for salat? Because when it does become wajib for girls in a couple of years and for boys in about 5 or 6 years, the transition becomes a little bit easier. They've been praying for the past at least 2 years with you. Now when it becomes wajib, it becomes an easy transition. Otherwise, no namaz, and the day that your daughter becomes baligh, the next day it's wajib, she's like, and she's bound to now not keep up with the 5 daily prayers. Okay? But these are the years now where you push them. These are the years now where you teach them the Quran. Remember, the hadith says that the child has 2 rights over you: a good name and the Quran. Okay, and this is now the time where either you yourself teach the Quran, or you get a qari, or you get a teacher, or you put them in Sunday school, whatever the case may be. But now push them spiritually, push them education-wise, teach them discipline, teach them the akhlaq. All the tools they learn in this second set will all come into play when they're 16, 17 years old. Remember that. A lot of my parents call me and say, my kid's 18, how do I fix this? By then, I'm sorry, it's a little bit too late. Whatever they know. Yeah, you can keep reminding them, and who knows, maybe he might turn around. But the years for them to turn around were between 7 and 14. Those were crucial years. If you have a child right now in those years, know that you are molding the child in very serious ways that may have repercussions 20 years from now in their life. It's heavy. I know it's a lot. Yes. But that's why the Quran says that your mal and your children are both a fitna. Fitna meaning not in the Urdu sense that it's a source of anxiety. Fitna that this is a test for you. Like, what are you doing with your child, right? And it all goes down to what I said yesterday about the identity of the child. Okay. So these are the years where you begin to push them and start to get them ready. Now when they're 6, tell them, oh, 1 more year and then you're 7, and then you're gonna work hard for me and then pray namaz with me, and they're like, yeah, can't wait, right? Get them ready for that, right? Get them ready for that, because when your child does turn 15, 16, 17 years old, now it becomes, their aql now is now building, their intellect is now strengthening, their reason and logic is now strengthening, everything is there, and they'll begin to make decisions based on their circle of influence and based on their own nafs and khaishat and desires. Okay? So while the first 7 years was a gradual climb, a gradual way of tarbiyat, the next set of years is a challenging way. Push them to see how far they can go. Okay? Don't make life miserable for them. Like, don't make the deen hard. Remember, I talked about the idea of the God of mercy and love yesterday. Right? Even at this stage in their life, when they are now entering, the musalla and on the prayer mat, remind them how much Allah loves them when they pray like this. Embrace them afterwards and tell them exactly how happy you are that they have joined the family Jamaat, or that you're praying with them, let's say, for example. Okay? And that brings me to the third set of years, from 14 to about 21. Okay? And these are very interesting years. Okay, and ones that I don't think, I'm sorry to say, our Indo-Pakistani parents quite understand. Okay. In these set of 15 or 14 to 21, Imam Sadiq refers to them as a wazir for you, as an advisor for you. Not that you advise them. That's always the case. Right? Remember, you're a parent for them until you're not. Even when they themselves become parents, it's important that you never stop that role of parents. I'm a father of 3, right? My mother still tells me what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, ye karna, wo karna, this and that, right? Whether it's a niyaz in my house on Thursday nights, or it's this, or it's that, or saying salam to somebody, or calling someone who's sick, or going for porsa, for condolences. She's still, up until now. And she jokes, I don't care how old you are or how old you think you are. I'm your mother. I'm like, okay, ma. Right? And I expect that from her until her last breath. She'll be my mother. Okay? So that I'm not saying that, but the hadith is very specific in saying that they now have the capacity to advise you. Now, this is very important. Sheikh Tusi rahmatullah alayh, a big scholar of hadith in our Shia world, he used to mark a certain date on his calendar, and every single year used to do a small celebration on that day. And for someone like me, that would be my birthday, for example. If I'm that shallow. But for him, that date was the day he became baligh. Okay, the day he became baligh, now he celebrated the word I'll use. He celebrated the fact that he was now worthy of God's sharia. He was now worthy to follow God's ahkam and sharia. In the process, now gain Allah's pleasure and the profit of heaven. Profit meaning, Profit, the profit of Jannah through his amal in this dunya. He saw the day of being baligh as a day of migration, a day of elevation for him. Why is that the case? Because he realized that God saw him as a mature adult. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made, especially our boys at the age of 15, at maximum 15, they're baligh. Baligh means they are a mukallif. A mukallif means they are responsible. Before that, whatever they did or they didn't do, they wouldn't be held responsible. But the moment you turn baligh with all its various signs, you are now held accountable. You will be asked about the decision at the age of 15. At the age of 15. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now sees something in a 15-year-old existence that perhaps you and I, as the parents of that 15-year-old, doesn't see. This maturity, this capacity, this potential to be a mature adult. And Allah wants to cultivate or wants to help him or her reach that potential through His Sharia. So discipline yourself. Wake up on time for Fajr. Make sure that 5 times a day you pray Salat. Make sure, for example, in the month of Ramadan that you carry out these acts, for example. All that is what? Discipline, time management. 1:17 is Zohar, right? 7:02 is Maghrib, right? 5:42 is Fajr. All these things are precisely to the minute to all what? To discipline a baligh individual, be it a sister or a brother. Okay. In the process now, what God is doing is that He is fulfilling or trying to fulfill the potential inside that child. Now, where do you and I come in? Now, as parents of that 15-year-old or 17 or 18-year-old, we have to begin to see that child the way God sees that child. Okay? This is not the same 9-year-old kid, the same 11-year-old child. It's not. This person is different now. Their intellect is different. Their aql is different. Now they are maturing into a young adult. And you might think, oh, Moulana, he still makes foolish decisions. That's fine. He's still growing. That's fine. That's different. But sometimes we think, oh, abhi tak bachcha hai wo. He's not a bachcha in the eyes of God. He's not. He's a mukallaf. He's responsible. If he's working at 15 and making money, he has to give khums. At the age of 15, has to give khums. He has to do taqleed at the age of 15. Find out who his marja is at the age of 15. Okay? Which means that God sees that potential inside of him. Do you see that potential inside of your 16-year-old? Okay? If so, how do we grow that potential? How do we actualize that potential? And that's where the wazir part comes in. The wazir part comes in this idea that now Imam Sadiq is saying, how is it that he's your advisor or she's your advisor? And I'll give you a practical example of what to do. And it ties into my tribalism discussion I had 3 nights ago. If we want our 15, 17, 18-year-old child to feel like they belong to the tribe of the family, because this is usually now where they venture out with their friends and they venture out with their circle of influence, and this is now where to keep a very close eye on the friends of your child. Absolutely. I'm sorry, my young guys, don't hate me, but to my parents out there, keep a close eye on the friends of your child. Please, I ask you, I tell you that as someone who's gone through multiple circles of friends. The influence is uncanny. The influence is very, very strong. Okay, a wrong group will literally convert your child into an unrecognizable child for you. Okay, how do we do that? Practically speaking, you have to begin to include this child into the affairs of the house. Okay, so for example, the financial affairs. Begin now to slowly but surely let him know how the affairs of the house are run. Okay, how the mortgage is paid, how the bills are paid. Okay, more important than that is that when you and your spouse now begin to make a very crucial decision, be it moving a home or going on vacation or going for some trip for ziyarat or whatever the case may be, include him in that meeting. Ask him or her what their thoughts are. Don't include the younger ones. If you have multiple children who are under 15, don't include them, and make it very clear to your 17, 16-year-old, this is just a meeting between me, you, and your mom or your dad, the 3 of us, nobody else. If you are a single parent, then the 2 of you. Because those guys won't get, they're too young. This is what we're thinking. We're thinking about, for example, moving the spring of 2021, for example. Okay? Let the winter go by. Because winter is a horrible time, for the market anyways, to buy or to sell. And then let's start fresh in spring. Okay, let's aim, end of March, first day of spring, blah, blah, blah. What do you think, first of all? It's a great idea, Dad. Okay, wonderful. I want you now, this is my budget. This is what we're looking for, at least 4 bedrooms. A maid basically would be nice if whatever the case may be, right? And I want you to go out and I want you to find at least 10 to 15 different potential homes. Assign him a task. Okay? Then let him advise us as a parent what he thinks the best option of the 10 is. The Prophet of Allah, oh my goodness, I wish sometimes we would adopt his sunnah. And I know that a lot of us try to do, but there are certain things about his life that blow me away. And one of them is that, the sheer confidence he had in those around him who were very, very young. He would give them monumental tasks. He'd actually ask for their advice. The war of Khandak, the very famous war of Ahzab, it's called. It's called Khandak because Khandak means a trench, right? And a trench was dug around the army of the Muslims to deter the enemy from attacking, okay? This idea of a trench was given to the Prophet by Salman al-Farsi. Salman al-Farsi was a very young man during the war of Khandak. He approached the Prophet of Allah, gave him an advice, this is what I think we should do, and the Prophet took it. Imagine that, let's say, for example, HAC has their annual general body meeting. Let's say, for example, a meeting of the members. Everyone is there, and there's a couple of teenage boys there as well, or teenage girls there, 17, 18, 16 years old. And when it comes to any other business now, they come on the mic and say, I would like to see this happening if possible. And they give, 2 or 3 suggestions. Okay? This is what our advice is to the elders of our community or to the execs of our community. We should try to do this, for example. Imagine now implementing those suggestions and the message you're sending to that 15-year-old that, oh my goodness, my community actually hears me and took my advice. The amount of pride, the tribalism that they would feel for their center. The Prophet of Allah, I don't know how many of you understand how monumental this migration, this hijrat was from Mecca to Medina. Right? The very famous night where Imam Ali slept in the bed of Rasulullah and he moved on towards Medina. The Islamic calendar, today, this year, it's 1442. That after Hijrah that we talk about, AH, is after the migration of the Holy Prophet. Meaning that one event that happened, the migration of the Prophet from Mecca to Medina, started the Islamic calendar in terms of the year. They didn't start counting the years of the Islamic movement until he got to Medina. Okay, so first year after Hijrah, second year after Hijrah, 8th year after Hijrah, 1442 after Hijrah. This is a monumental historical event. It was the beginning of the establishment of the deen as a socio-economic, political, encompassing system. Had he stayed in Mecca, the Prophet would not have been as successful as he was in Medina. Now, that we get. What sometimes we don't understand is that the one who gave the advice for the migration to Medina and the green light to Medina as advice was an 18-year-old child. 18 years old. Mus'ab ibn Amir. Mus'ab ibn Amir, very, very quickly, was an ambassador of the Holy Prophet. Sent to Yathrib, which was the name of the city of Medina before it was Medina, to go and basically, be a form of a consultant, an Islamic consultant between the 2 tribes of Yathrib, Khazraj and Aus. There were 2 tribes that were arch enemies of each other. And he went as a consultant of Islam, as an ambassador of the Holy Prophet, to make peace, to reconcile these 2 together. And to, again, convert them towards Islam. When the idea was presented to the Prophet by one of the heads of the tribes in Yathrib, that why don't you come to Medina and establish your government here? The people of Mecca don't respect you. Mus'ab was already on the ground in Medina, beginning his work of preparing for this monumental event. The Prophet actually told the tribe that until Mus'ab gives me that green light, I will not move forward. And so he waited. Mus'ab wrote a letter to the Holy Prophet. The people of Medina are ready for you, Ya Rasulullah. Make your way towards Medina. And the Prophet migrated. He was 18 years old. How many of my parents right now have 17, 18-year-olds inside of their home? Have we given them that set of confidence and that trust that, look, you need to, go ahead and do this? How many of our elders in our communities, our executives, our leaders in our communities across the North American communities have given that trust to our youth? Now, a lot of you will complain and say, but tayar nahi hai. They're not. I'm sorry. They're lazy kids, they're lazy youth. They don't want to do anything. And to a certain degree, I get it. They won't be able to do all that you've done as the elders and as the bani and as the main builders of this community. But you need to take them along, build them, give them that strength. The Prophet of Allah made Bilal Habashi the first mu'adhin after Fatih Mecca. He climbed the Kaaba and gave the adhan. Bilal was not even 20. Jaffri al-Tayyar made the first tabligh mission to Abyssinia, Ethiopia. Jaffar was 22. Amir al-Mu'minin up and down the wars of Medina, all of the fadail of Badr and Uhud and Khaybar and Khandaq. Ali was in his 20s during all of that. The only complaint they had on Ghadir was the fact that Ali is very young. He's 33 years old. He wears passed up clothing. He ties his shoes with rope. This entire empire is his. The Prophet already established across 23 years that age is nothing but a number for me. It's the state of the iman and the strength of the heart that matters to me. But he entrusted them. And yes, there was a risk of them falling and failing. But he was willing to take that risk because if you give your child a job to do and they fail at it, that actually becomes more beneficial for everybody than telling the child that you're too young for this. Understand my point? I'd rather see a child try and fail, be given a chance and fail, than be told already preemptively that you're too young. Tum abhi chote ho yaar, tum bacche ho yaar, you can't do this right now. Okay? Let me do it. So, come on, Dad, let me try at least. No, it's okay. Let him try. Let them fall. Let them, it's okay. And be patient and prepare yourself. Zara sa bardash kar le. That the failures of your youngsters, but know that what he'll remember is that Dad gave me a chance, Mom gave me a chance, the Prophet gave me a chance. In the process, now they feel like they belong inside the family. They belong inside the family. And that's what you want. You want your 16-year-old child to feel like they belong inside that family. That happens when they know the people in my family trust me. They have confidence in me. If I mess up, it's okay. I know that my parents pick me up and dust me off. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't sit there and say, okay, well, you're a failure. Oh, it's okay. No, push him a little bit. Of course, push him. But let him know that if you try and fail, it's okay. Because it's more of a process for me than is a result. And I want my Indo-Pak parents, immigrant parents, to adopt a process of tarbiyat, not the result-driven tarbiyat. Okay? So if, for example, you tell your 16-year-old child that, that school is over now, it's the summertime, go out and find a job. It's good for you. Find a part-time job. I don't care. Just go out and look for a job. Okay, but Dad, it's a pandemic. It's tough. The market is tough. Let me, just try. And you see these two different approaches. One approach is the child gets up in the morning, fixes his resume, goes out there, store to store, applying online. You see him physically trying, and after a month now, he says, Dad, there's no jobs out there. What do you say? Okay, no problem. Thanks for trying. You would say that, right? Hopefully you would say that. You wouldn't say, oh, you know why there's no job out there? Because you're a failure, you're a loser. You have no, of course, hopefully you wouldn't say that. As opposed to somebody who you don't see a single moment on his resume, or trying to fix her resume, or online applying, or going out, let's say, for example, and giving out your resume, which still exists nowadays, right? If you don't see that, and then they come back and say, oh, there is no job, then you can say, have you even tried? Have you picked the phone up? No, you haven't. My point is that this third set of 777 is it's crucial and works only if the first seven work. and the second 7 work. But now begin to show your child that I know that maybe you're 15 years old. Give him small tasks around the house. I don't mean clean the dishes. I don't mean sweep the floors. That's important, of course. I mean other things. Like we're in the market for a car right now. What do you think? Which car do you think would work best for me for this budget? What do you think? I think a van, an SUV, blah blah blah, V6, V4, whatever the case. Let him do his research. You'll be surprised, man. These kids will create an app for you in 1 second. Say, Dad, look what I did, and you'll be amazed. Amazing. In the process, now your process is easier because you've now delegated, and now the child feels like, you know what? I'm part of the family. Dad trusts me, man. Dad thinks I'm smart. That goes a long way. Goes a long way. And I can still remember growing up in my house, those moments where I said something that maybe we should try doing this, and the family did it and turned out to be great. And the accolades I got from my father or from my mother, it feels amazing. It feels great. Better than anything this dunya can recognize. Any validation, any subscribers, any followers, any retweets, all that is nothing and fails to comparison when your parent sits there and says, you know what? You're a smart kid, man. I'm proud of you. That was well done. That goes a long way. And that's what I mean. And that's what the hadith means by a wazir. Begin to build that trust. Now what happens is that he'll take the trust that you have in him as a parent, and he'll begin to trust himself. He'll begin to trust himself. A lot of our kids today, late teens, early 20s, have a lot of self-trust issues, self-confidence issues, self-image issues, self-love issues. They think they're zero. They think they're hopeless. They think God hates them. They think everyone hates them. They're disappointed in themselves. They're failures in their own eyes. And when you start to begin to believe that you're a failure in everything, you start to begin you're a failure in the eyes of God as well. And then you just stop trying after a while. What's the point, Asad? I'll never be able to get that level of God. I can barely finish my namaz without this or without that. Why would I even try? It's all connected. It's all connected. So this 777 is extremely important. And I want to make sure that we understand that point. My last 5-10 minutes of this lecture tonight is that I want my parents to understand that there's a reason why God places the parents at the level of the level that he does. All of you want to know that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes up and down the Quran talks about worshiping him, and do not do shirk, and don't create idols alongside God. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and be good to your parents. And be good to your parents. Why is that? Why is there such a emphasis? And at the same sentence, not the same level, but same sentence as worshiping God, because to some degree, both God and your parents and the parents are both murabbis of the insan. Murabbi is the one who does tarbiyat. Tarbiyat is the one who nurtures you. God is nurturing you, and of course your parents are nurturing you. Now I want my parents to understand that while you're nurturing, your style of nurturing your child, understand the way God nurtures you as his creation. Meaning sometimes, for example, you place your child in a difficult position knowing full well that there's a greater good in mind. Know that God does the exact same thing to you. Know that, for example, when your child is not feeling well and she has to go through very bitter tasting medicine, know that that bitter tasting medicine, you're going to give them that medicine. Even for 2 seconds, they might make a face, they might go ew, but at least they'll sleep properly because they'll feel better. God sometimes makes us go through bitter events in our life so that we can sleep better a little bit later on. Use the avenue of raising your child to strengthen your awareness of God. Understand that the same way you are a murabbi to a certain degree, to a higher degree, God is your murabbi. The same way you want what's best for your child, and sometimes you need to be stern with them to get that point across, is the same way God also wants what's best for you. Hadith says that as much as you love your child, God loves you 70 times more than that. So raising God-centric children is also raising God-centric individuals inside of you as well. Remember that always. It's not just about the child. the more you promote piety to others, you are essentially promoting the piety within. The more you're raising your child to be God conscious, the more God conscious you're becoming yourself. And all of us wish to be more God conscious, right? And that's why one of the avenues that we refer to as the avenues of the mercy of God are through children and the awlad. And that's been my attempt now for the past 5 nights with all of you, is to understand that there has to be a very, very conscious decision now to raise a God-centric child. You can't just let him be or let her be at the whim of society, or whatever they're doing on their devices, whatever games they're playing, however long they're out late. No, be on top of things. Be the involved parent, not just one. If you have the luxury of having both parents, both of them have to be on board. Especially my fathers, you can't let your wife do everything and anything, from inside the house to Quran class to homework to I don't know this and that, and you're just saying, you know what, I work 9 to 5, I'm tired, that's the most I can do. I'm sorry, brother, that's not the most you can do. You have to do more than that. You're the wali of the house. You're in charge of everyone in that house. Okay, and we need better dads to step up. We have too many deadbeat dads out there that are doing nothing for their kids. I'm sorry. Putting all the burdens on the wife and the mother, and then they complain when the wife complains that the burden is too heavy for me. She wasn't built to carry that much of a load, and she shouldn't have to. It's your job. It's my job as a father and a husband to do that. I'm the one that has to protect me and my family from the fire of this world and the fire of the next world as well. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help us, inshallah, in raising God conscious and God centered children, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq, inshallah, as families, to strengthen our families to be a family that's worthy of the Imam of our time. We ask you, Allah, to accept our grief and gham, the past 68 days of Muharram. We ask you, Allah, inshallah, to give us no gham and no grief except for the grief of Ali Muhammad. And finally, on the Shabi Eid, Allah, we ask you to weaken the hands of the enemies of Islam, to strengthen and to fortify the Mustaza'afin, and to raise us beside the Imam when he arrives, inshallah. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.